Protests in the streets of Nigeria continued as young Nigerians continue to demand reforms of police system and an end to police brutality, but counter-protests too emerge as demonstrations turn violent. And the governor of Lagos State, Babajide Sanwo-Olu, told protesters today to allow government to act on their demands, telling them that they have been heard and loudly too. Hello everyone and welcome to the program. This is Politics Today live on Channels Television. I'm Sean Baloye and this is the midweek edition of the program. So in the next 6 minutes or so, I will be guiding you through some of the major stories in the land and dissecting some of those stories that are on the minds and the lips of many Nigerians, one of which is the protest by young Nigerians who've taken to the street to demand a sane police structure in Nigeria. A protest that is gradually getting larger now as issues of good governance is creeping into the list of demands of some of the protesters. Tonight, we dissect some of the issues raised and the way forward for Nigeria. But before we get deep into that, because my partner tonight experience and are going to be giving you perspective into what you need to know, the right information that you need to know right now. But let's get some of your top political stories on our political roundup.
We are tired of them killing us, shooting us, extorting us, assaulting us, harassing us.
President Muhammadu Buhari has today approved $2 million contribution from Nigeria as the country's 2020 running cost to the West Africa Power Pool from the Ministry of Power. Also, 1.2 billion naira for the supply of security equipment for 7 railway stations from the Ministry of Transport, and an approval for a national policy on virtual engagements from the Ministry of Communication. The approvals were made at the 19th Virtual Federal Executive Council meeting, which held at the Council Chambers of State House in Abuja. The wave of protests across the country seems to be gathering momentum as the coalition of northern groups summons youths across all northern states to engage in fresh protests to force the government to take action on the security situation in the north. The group at a meeting in the nation's capital berated the government over its swift response to the End SARS protest, while bigger issues such as banditry, killings, kidnapping and Boko Haram attacks in the north received less intervention despite protracted protests. According to the group, a change of name of the police unit to SWAT is not synonymous with attitudinal change. The Edo State House of Assembly has rescinded its decision to suspend former Speaker Francis Okie, who was removed a few days ago. Addressing journalists after today's plenary, the majority leader and member representing Ikpobaha constituency, Henry Okwarabo, said the House unanimously agreed to accept the resignation of Mr. Okie as Speaker in the interest of the people. On his part, Mr. Okie says he has no issues with the resolution, adding that the lawmakers reserve the right to choose the leadership of the House. Some elected councillors on the platform of the All Progressives Congress (APC) from the 18 local government areas of the state have staged a peaceful protest over alleged intimidation and withholding of their salaries, allegedly on the orders of the state government, following their refusal to move from the APC to the People's Democratic Party. They said although the payment of their salaries and allowances are within the purview of the local government in Edo State, the local government council chairman has however refused to pay them, allegedly acting on the directive of Governor Godwin Obaseki. Meanwhile, the Edo State government has described the accusation by the lawmakers as a mischievous handiwork of the enemies of the state. The chairman of the All Progressives Congress in Edo State, Mr. Anselm Bujezwa, is blaming the national leadership of the party for the party's loss of the governorship seat to Governor Godwin Obaseki of the People's Democratic Party, the PDP. Mr. Ojezwa lamented that it was unfortunate that the APC Caretaker Committee allowed outsiders to represent the party in the September 19 governorship poll, which he described as credible because the people's will prevailed. The Edo APC chairman, who was speaking during the Thanksgiving service at the party secretariat along Airport Road in Benin City, the state capital, said the national leadership had been issued an ultimatum on September the 24th to address the issues or face mass defection from members.
For once in the history of this country, the people actually led. They supervised the process, they voted, they participated, and they protected their votes. They counted in open, and the results have been counted and published.
Thank you so much, and let's get into it, everyone. It's perhaps your biggest story and worry in the land today in Nigeria, across the nation. People talking about the protests the young Nigerians have taken to the street with series of protests and not ending. Today, the street demonstrations continued. But the governor of Lagos State, Babajide Sanwo-Olu, is asking for patience of the protesters, saying they have heard them and they are acting on their demands.
The award presentation.
It's a clarion call for we parents. It's a clarion call for we leaders. It's a clarion call to we opinion molders, that our children have issued us a new agenda, a new position for us to look at. And I want to humbly request and appeal to our youths that their voices have been heard, that their grievances have been well taken, that their cause is a just and a proper cause, and that their views that we have not listened to, we have listened to them, and we have listened to them very, very well. And like I did mention yesterday and day before yesterday, government now more than ever before will do things differently, positively. And you can all see all the efforts that we have started since yesterday, since day before yesterday, and today going forward. And so I want to appeal once again that because of the global pandemic that we've witnessed and we've seen over the last 6-7 months, that the youth should let the effects of the protest go down, and they should let their voice that has been heard, let government play their role and play it well.
Few hours after the governor spoke, the NSAS protesters blocked the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway. They are insisting that their action is to drive home their demand for the end to police brutality in the country. They are also asking for the scrapping of the newly formed Special Weapons and Tactics Team, and that the Inspector General of Police should resign his position. Earlier, the protesters had turned up at Alausa, the seat of the Lagos State government, with musical instruments fully set up and singing to different tunes. And the protesters here in the nation's capital, Abuja, have also blocked major roads and causing gridlock. The protesters are insisting on the need to completely reform the police force instead of just replacing the Special Anti-Robbery Squad, also known as SAS, with the new police formation called SWAT. In a related development, dozens of young people also gathered at the Unity Fountain for a solidarity rally for the police. The group maintains that the ongoing NSAS protest is capable of demoralizing the police. it does look like things are turning really violent. As today we understand that those peaceful protesters were being attacked by hoodlums, some of which by themselves, those protesters had arrested some of them. But there is some what they call citizens arrest. Well, that's perhaps what played out at some centers in Lagos and in parts of Abuja where hoodlums attacked those protesters. But the police authority is saying that they have moved swiftly on the demands made by these protesters. Part of it is a newly tactical team to replace the Federal Special Anti-Robbery Squad. The police say the tactical team will only respond to robbery attacks or sins of weapon-related crimes, rescue operations, and high-profile operations involving criminals. They also claim that no personnel of the defunct SARS will be selected to be part of the new tactical team, and their operations will be strictly intelligence-driven. They also say that the new tactical team will not embark on routine patrols, neither will they be allowed to check citizens' phones, laptops, and other smart devices. Take a look at some of the demands of the protesters, whether or not government has met them. Let's take a look at what they are asking and how government is reacting to them. These are the 4-point demands of the protesters, which today is turned into perhaps end SWAT. We'll be discussing that. Immediate release of all arrested protesters, justice for deceased victims of police brutality, and appropriate compensation for them. Let's get to talk about this, everyone. I'm being joined by senior advocate of Nigeria rights activist, Mr. Femi Falana. Thank you so much, Mr. Falana, for joining us. And from our Abuja studio is the retired Assistant Inspector General of Police, Mr. Austin Iwa. Thank you so much, Mr. Iwa, for your time tonight. Let me begin the conversation with Mr. Falana. The hashtag for the protesters today changed. It changed from hashtag EndSARS to hashtag EndSWAT. Some of them are saying they find it very embarrassing that the government will, under 48 hours, say they disbanded the SARS and now they are putting up a SWAT. How do you find this, Mr. Falana, in the perspective of the fact that a lot of people think what is happening or playing out in the minds of the protesters may be beyond the issue of police brutality?
Well, I think Nigerians owe the youths a lot of gratitude for the peaceful manner in which they have carried out the protest, and also for waking all of us up to our responsibilities. For me, it is not actually the name that matters. And I think what the youths are saying is that beyond the naming or renaming, they want to see concrete steps taken to show that it is not going to be business as usual in policing in Nigeria. And as far as I'm concerned, so far we are merely scratching the surface of the problem. There has been no indication that the government is prepared yet to respect the rights of the Nigerian people embodied in the Constitution and other statutes, human rights statutes. And in this particular instance, I'm not talking of the government in Abuja alone. I'm not talking of the federal government. I'm also talking of state governments that have greater responsibility towards policing the states, the respective states, towards providing security for everybody living in Nigeria. It's supposed to be a joint responsibility of the federal government and state governments to police the country. But because this has not been the case, police powers in Nigeria have been hijacked by the presidency since 1999. That has to change. The laws that have been made to respect the rights of the Nigerian people, embodied in the Constitution and other laws will have to be respected now. We have to actualize the provisions of those laws in a way that there shall be no form of police brutality, torture, extortion of money from citizens, and so on and so forth. The laws are there, but they are all observed in their breach, and that is what has to change. The conditions of service of police personnel will have to change. The training will have to change. And then you cannot have policemen and women in 2020 Nigeria living in dehumanized military, barracks. All that has to change if you want to have proper policing in this society.
All right. Let me speak to perhaps someone who has worn that uniform before and can tell us what it feels like. But what worries me personally as a citizen of this country, first and foremost, I'm a citizen before I became a journalist, is how does these things get so bad? For example, you will see pictures of SARS officials who are putting on knickers, who are putting on sleeveless shirts and carrying ammunitions and also putting on slippers. How did things get so bad in the first place? Because I believe that we need to first of all get the problem and then find the solution. Ms. Aiwa, how did it get this bad?
Yes, thank you very much for bringing me to this program today. How did we arrive at where we are? First of all, I want to thank the protesters for calling attention to the plight of the police today in Nigeria. Over the years, people have been talking about reforming the police, about the plight of the police, about the condition of service of the police, about the barrack system of the police, about the welfare, about salaries, about training. And I recall very well that a television program, a television network, I think it should be channels, did a documentary on the police college in Ikeja, and it called attention of the then president as to the plight of training in Nigeria police. Having said that, we also know that there has been massive neglect of the Nigerian police over the years. Governments over the years have severally neglected the police in every ramification. You need to take a look at the police barracks today, and you need to take a look at police offices and police stations and see where officers that are trained to maintain public safety and security are either living or are walking out from. I mean, talking about uniform, you mentioned about police officers being in tattered uniforms. Yes. Where is the funding? Is the police getting enough funds to provide uniform for every officer? No. Officers buy their uniforms. Both the junior rank and file and senior officers buy their uniforms. And so, what happens? With poor salaries, a constable receives maybe 43,000 naira per month, and he has to spend about 15,000 naira to get a pair of uniform. He has to put into consideration school fees. He has to put into consideration transportation to and fro his office, and he has to take care of his parents, his relatives, and everybody. And you discover that he's under pressure, not only from his family, but even from the police to perform. He doesn't have the facilities to perform. And then you discover that at the end of the day, he's under pressure. He's under severe pressure. He develops some psychological problems. And unfortunately, I'm not making an excuse for the brutality that we have experienced in the hands of the police, but we must acknowledge that the police has been, as an institution, as a people, have been brutalized by several governments. And this is what we are getting. I give kudos to the protesters for bringing out the plight of the police and calling attention of not only the Nigerian people, the Nigerian government, but even the international community.
All right.
Because this
Iwa,
protest is not just...
Just a moment. You mentioned on the issue of the documentary and the special that Channels Television did. At that time and that year, it was Channels Television's corporate social responsibility. And so it was right for those who say that journalists are prophets at some point. We saw this. It was a ticking time bomb, and it's now on our hands, and it's ticking several aspects of our lives, and governance has been brought to the table. We'll take a break, everyone. But when we come back, we look at the heart of the matter. The protesters are saying, we do not want SWAT. We do not want SAS. What exactly will fix this situation? Mr. Falana and Mr. Iwa are still talking to us. And of course, one of the leaders of the protesters will be talking to us right here on the program for the way forward. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Thank you so much, everyone. Across the globe, celebrities on the international, in some other countries, in the US and the UK, are joining their voices on what has become a major viral trend in Nigeria, and that's the hashtag #EndSARS, hashtag #EndSWAT. Well, a lot of people have applauded the protesters for what has been described now as a reawakening. The governor of Lagos State said, the protesters have been heard. Mr. Falana and Mr. Iwa are my guests tonight on the program. Also, we'll be hearing from one of the leaders of the protesters, at least the man who was said to have initiated the hashtag #EndSARS. Will be joining us tonight on the program. But let's get back to the conversation. Before I go to Mr. Falana, let me allow Mr. Iwa to give us a sense of the rejection of the protesters. They say, is as if you are rechristening a bad child. It doesn't take away the fact that the child is bad. You've been in the force for several years, 30 years at least. What do you think is the solution of the problem? We're hearing state policing, community policing. These people are talking about restructuring, but specifically for the police. What do you think is the major solution?
Well, the thing is that we cannot create a gap. We cannot create a gap in the current situation. Now that SARS has been scrapped, there needs to be a unit or a squad that will take over the responsibility of SARS, and that unit, the Inspector General of Police did say, call it Special Weapons and Tactics Squad, SWAT. Given the level of crime and criminality in our country, the Inspector General of Police cannot afford to leave any loophole. We need also to understand that in protests like these, criminals also take advantage of what is going on and try to achieve their own aims. Now, going forward from here, from the new script that you have just shown, the Inspector General of Police has clearly stated how the new outfit will look like. The new outfit will be like the old SARS, the initial SARS. Will focus on core objectives of providing public safety and security, and will not be found on the streets again, checking vehicles or checking persons on roads or carrying out illegal activities. It will now be intelligence-led. And that brings me back to the fact that the Nigerian government and the Nigerian police is talking about community policing. What is playing out here is an aspect of community policing. Protesters, young people, want to have a say in how they are being policed. They want to have a say in how they should be policed. And from all indications, the government has acceded to all their demands and started immediately to implement this demand without even extensive negotiation or discussion with the protesters. Something has started to be done. And community policing, I think, is the way to go. The Inspector General of Police, some couple of months back, had already started the process by ensuring that community policing boards in every state has been set up. I expect that in this situation where we are now, this circumstances that we find ourselves now, those boards should be talking to young people, should come out and take responsibility of containing or speaking to young people with regards to what should be done going forward. Talking of state police, sometimes I don't understand. Maybe it's a problem of terminology. We already run a state police. I mean, we have a national police. A state police is a police organization that caters to the interests of the state. And to that extent, we run a state police, except if we are talking about devolution of powers of the police to states. And that can be achieved if we activate the police council. The police council has the responsibility for managing, administration, supervising the Nigerian police. All governors are members of the police council. So a governor cannot say that he cannot control his a commissioner of police, and so he needs a state police. He's a member of an institution, of a major structure of governance that is responsible for managing the Nigerian police. So this is the time to activate the police council, to make sure that it has clearly defined roles and responsibility with regards to the responsibilities that are given. The good thing is that the Police Act mentioned about police council and try to make sure that police council works meet about twice a year to look into the plight of the Nigerian police. So let the police council work. Let the police council work. The police council should be leading even in the implementation of community policing.
So sometimes I get so scared. It's as if you have a robber on the loose. Let's bring back Mr. Falano into the conversation. It's as if you have a robber on the street, legitimately allowed to be acting. When I see the way and manner some of these SARS officials operated, they go with in some very, very scary uniform and with headbands, and I mean, never looking like official police officers. But now that has been scrapped, the protesters are saying they do not want to see anything like SWAT, and they're not agreeing to it. Where do you think the government can go from it? Because the conversation around this NSAS is also moving into the issues of good governance.
Well, Seun, I would like to say this before we address the challenge of the new outfit. We are really not addressing the concrete problems. The training of the police is colonial, completely primitive. A man joins the police force, he goes to the police college. A woman goes to the police college, dehumanized. A woman cannot make her hair. She has to cut her hair. A man has to shave his hair to the skull. Now, the feeding is bad. They have no idea of human rights, human relations. They are trained like colonial policemen to brutalize the society. And that is what is going on. So, for those who are in mobile unit, we used to call them kill and go in the Second Republic under IGP Adeosi. That has transformed into SARS. Now, what is the training? In the college, they are tear gassed in rooms without windows. And for them, that is the way to train them. They are beaten, tortured. The feeding is bad. So when the man comes out of the college, or the woman, you want to brutalize a society that dehumanizes you in the college. And from what Mr. Uwa is saying, his salary is poor. And the challenges are enormous. So the station is not funded. Police stations are not funded in Nigeria. So daily, to run the stations, the DPOs depend on extortion of money from the public, from suspects. Sometimes some stations, some police stations are not built by the government, but by members of the community, including hardened criminals. And when a criminal has built a police station and maintains the police station, how do you arrest him if he commits offenses in the neighborhood? So we have to retrain all policemen and women in Nigeria. They have to be told, they have to be taught about human rights. Two, you have to improve their wages. Their living conditions are terrible. Those who are living in the midst of, with the people will have to be made to appreciate that they are not above, they cannot live above the people. They must also relate to the people and ensure that they respect their neighbors. You then go from there. And again, the young people are not talking about SWAT or SARS alone. They are talking of a new policing system for the country. Mr. Uwa has just mentioned the Nigerian Police Council, set up by the Constitution. We do not have a state police. The Constitution is not talking about community policing, but about the Nigerian police. And that police power shall be exercised by the Nigerian Police Council, made up of the President, Inspector General of Police, Chairman Police Council, and the 36 state governors. They shall meet regularly to discuss security in the country, because the Constitution says, Section 14, the security and welfare of the people shall be the primary purpose of government. And I'm talking of, the Constitution says the President cannot appoint or remove an Inspector General of Police without consulting with members of the Nigerian Police Council. But that body does not meet. The other one, apart from the constitutional provision, we must look at other laws. There is the Nigerian National Human Rights Commission Act of 2010. What does it say about the police? All violations of human rights in Nigeria shall be investigated by that body. But the governing council of that body has not been inaugurated since 2015. That can be done today. Administration of Criminal Justice Act 2015 has provided adequate provision for how policemen and women should respect the rights of such in police stations. These rights are not being respected right now. People are being arrested in lieu of criminal suspects. That has been prohibited. There shall be no torture. In fact, Anti-Torture Act of 2017 has criminalized any form of torture, mental, psychological, physical. You have the Police Trust Fund Act of 2019 that has provided that 0.5% of money in the Federation account shall be deployed towards funding the police, their training, their accommodation, and buying equipment, so that they won't be buying their own uniforms on their own. Then you have the Nigerian police.
So, Mr. Falana, where have all these been? That's going to be a big question, isn't it? There are years where corruption in the police have been brought to the fore.
Shown the government is not complying with these laws. And that is the problem we are facing in the country. We make laws, the laws are ignored by the government to the detriment of law and order in the society. This is why we're in a mess. So you are not going to address this problem by merely changing or rechristening the SARS and I'll call it SWAT. No, you must go to the root cause of the crisis of policing in Nigeria.
Mr. Falana, just a moment, just so that we're looking at solutions now. And I understand that government officials are listening, because at this moment, this is not just about the police. It's about what government is doing, the government of the day. Now, impunity is one of the issues, Mr. Iwa, if I bring you back into the conversation. A situation where a police officer will tell you, I will shoot you now and nothing will happen. or the protesters are also equally saying that we do not want rebranding, we do not need PR process. What we need is an overhaul. So going forward, if you can give us an understanding of how we need to tackle this, who needs to do what, and how this needs to be done urgently.
Well, I know that even before this protest came about, the Inspector General of Police was involved in some, was engaging some international organizations in police reforms. I know because I am involved in some of them. I know that the Inspector General of Police is working with the British Council in developing some policies, some standard operating procedures that will bring in standards and professionalism in the police. Even the ICRC, the International Committee of the Red Cross, and even recently the American government through the Strategic Capacity Group of the United States is also working in bringing in some level of professionalism into the police. So a lot is going on with regards to bringing in improving the police and reforming the police, as it were. However, reforms are not things that can be done overnight. It's not a mile. It's something that you have to take gradually. And given the situation that we have today, with the attention that these young people have brought to the country, it's very clear that the government will take this challenge very serious. And from what we are seeing, they are taking this challenge very serious. And the president has spoken about reforming the police, and I believe that structures will be put in place and some progress will be made. The IG himself, I believe, is not sleeping. In terms of whether change of name, SWAT, or whatever, like I said, you cannot have a vacuum. You have to have an outfit that will take care of the objectives of SWAT. So I understand these young men, their apprehension, and I believe that this apprehension is predicated on the fact that governments over the years have failed the people. There has been empty promises, and because of that, people have learned to distrust what government says. But I think that this time around, I appeal to the protesters to give peace a chance and stand and watch what is going to happen.
All right. I would like to get back to Mr. Falano, and we're looking at solutions now. On a final note, Mr. Falano, if there is anything to be done, because persuasion might help, communication in this process might help, because it's gradually leading into what there is no leader to these protesters. Mr. Falano, if there is one advice that you need to give, either to the president, who is the leader of the country, what should he be doing now?
Number one, I would like to call on the government to stop allowing armed thugs or hoodlums to attack protesters who have conducted themselves peacefully and maturely and patriotically. If everybody has recognized that these young men and women have played positive roles in drawing the attention of the government and the authorities to the crisis in policing in Nigeria, they should not be attacked by anybody. In fact, the law says that protesters shall be protected by the police. Secondly, the laws like the Vagrancy Act, law of wandering, no loitering, that law was abolished in 1989. We don't need, like Mr. Uwa is saying, you don't need anything gradual. Today, the IG can say there shall be no arrest of any Nigerian for loitering or wandering. Thirdly, the president has a duty today to reconstitute the National Human Rights Commission. 3, the Accountant General of the Federation has a duty tomorrow to open an account that will warehouse the money that has been earmarked under the Police Trust Fund to fund the police. Anti-Torture Act, the Attorney General of the Federation is required by Section 11 of that law to bring out regulations to stop torture of suspects in Nigeria. Again, you don't need to wait to do that. I can go on and on and on. So, my advice to the president is to get all the relevant agencies of the government to carry out their statutory duties. Secondly, the police must protect the protesters. Thirdly, the government must engage in dialogue with the leaders of the protesting group. After all, the government is negotiating with terrorists and kidnappers. So why don't you negotiate with patriots like the young men and women that are protesting all over the country? The last one, there has to be a full-fledged inquiry. I will support a judicial commission of inquiry, not a judicial commission of inquiry that will sit in camera in six like the Ayo Salami Judicial Commission of Inquiry. This one will sit in the open like a computer panel that will investigate the atrocities. One that has not been mentioned is the extrajudicial killing of suspects by facts or some of the agents that are asked to investigate crimes and prosecute people. And finally, I'm calling on state attorneys general, because 98% of criminal cases in Nigeria, criminal offenses, are state offenses. Let our attorneys general take over the prosecution of cases in Nigeria. More so that the Police Act 2020 has prohibited lay policemen and women from prosecuting in our court. So state government will have to engage lawyers to take over the prosecution of cases in all our courts. If the government can put all this in place, and this can be done in the next 3 days, the young men and women can now be persuaded, they will be persuaded to leave the street. So what they are saying, I've been talking to some of them on behalf of the Alliance on Surviving COVID-19 and Beyond, ASCA. They are saying, we do not trust the government. If we leave the street, nothing will happen. So let the government quickly roll out the reform, actualize the promises, so that the young men and women can say, now we are convinced that government is serious, government is standing to end police brutality in Nigeria. Thank you very much.
Mr. Falana, indeed, I most sincerely thank you for your thoughts tonight on the program. So a lot of people are also raising this big question, and it has to do with the issue of where does this lead now, that the protesters saying they will not back down until they see practical decision. We'll be hearing in a moment from one of the leaders, perhaps one man that stood in for those who are being dehumanized by police SAS officers. We'll be talking to him. Yeah, another perspective to all of this is the fact that, is it true that there has been no budget for police barracks over the years? What has happened to the monies that are being budgeted to fix and to maintain the police structure over the years? Hold that on one hand. On the other hand is the fact that the police officers are perhaps the least paid officers in the public service. Again, one of the issues the protesters are asking for is the fact that lawmakers, either in the state or at the federal level, are being heavily paid, and perhaps some of them are the highest paid across the globe. What happens to our police officers who are supposed to safeguard the citizens? These are some of the demands of the protesters. Let me quickly get a view of Mr. Iwa on this one. Over the years, the barracks are bad. All of these are bad. We've seen corruption in the police force. Would you be asking for an investigation into the monies that have gone into the police force for these innocent young men and women that are trained to keep us safe?
Of course. Every year we hear of budget allocations to the police. How much is this budget? I recall that in 2018 or so, only 20% of police budget was given to the police. So you can imagine that somebody demands for 100 naira and you give the person 20 naira, not even 50% of what the person requires. And there's nothing you can do with 20% of your budget. You cannot take care of barracks. There are hundreds of, tens of thousands of barracks across the country that are, some of them are 80 years old, some of them are 60 years old. They need to be brought down and new ones built. The budgetary allocation cannot take care of that. I recall very well that as a commissioner of police, in a quota, I get about 2.5 million or 3 million to manage the barracks in my state, to manage vehicles. I had about, in one of the states, I had about 110 vehicles. I'm giving 250,000 naira to fuel those vehicles, to look after 500,000 naira, to look after, to repair barracks with about, you have close to maybe 100 units, to take care of 100 units of buildings that are more than 70 years old. And so, just like Falana said, there has been massive underfunding of the police. It's the least funded police organization, I think, of in this part of the world, in Africa.
Right. So, Mr. Iwa,
most likely all over the world.
It's a very sad scenario that you're painting there, and perhaps what we're seeing, what is playing out, and that's what China Television did a few years ago to highlight some of these issues. Let me bring in Segun Awoson, popularly called Sega. The last time Segun appeared on China Television, things have really changed. Now you were in Abuja. You met with, you're one of the people who met with the IG, and a conversation on whether or not those 5 demands are going to be met. But your colleagues and your friends on the street, those young Nigerians, are saying they will not back down. What is the way forward now, Segun?
Well, you need to understand youth. They've been through a lot, and most of the anger is not just about the SARS thing alone, which is decimating them, which is obvious based on the trajectory of the past 4 or 5 years or more. You know, the basic thing is that the issue of trust. The issue of trust. A lot of promises have been made in the past and they have not been kept, and there's no how, you know, these people, they've been called names, lazy youth, they don't have jobs. You know, we have a 55% unemployment rate in Nigeria, and then they have certificates and they cannot secure jobs. And now they are being decimated by police. And now they're saying, they're asking, please, can you at least end this this killer squad? We don't want to be afraid for our lives, despite the fact that we have a lot of things that are buffeting us already. They are also saying that we know that you have done all these things and all, but we need to see the seriousness in this. If you are giving pronouncement, we've heard a lot of things before. But if we see that, okay, you said you're going to set up a panel of inquiry so that people who have lost their children and all can be compensated, and the families that have lost their awards can be compensated. Let us see that committee set up. Let us begin to see a register where people can come and complain, and let us hear that this thing have started. Let us begin to bring to book every single person, even from the past days, that have violated the rights of Nigerians, or they have even killed Nigerians. Where are these officers? Are they working free, or are they incarcerated already? Are they going to be tried? These are some things they need to see. Also, by now, I believe government, National Orientation Agency, I don't know what they're doing. The president just signed a police bill 2020. We need, by now, the citizens need to see the importance of this particular bill.
All right, Mr. Awosonya, I know you are monitoring the development. There are you are involved in putting together those 5 items. let's pick them one after the other and quickly too.
They are actually
Immediate.
10.
Okay, they are 10. Okay, the five
They are
ones.
actually 10.
Okay.
The 5 are the conservative. The youth were very considerate. They said, okay, instead of all the 5, at least if you can get us this, the 10, if you can get us these 5 in the immediate, we'll begin to ease up the whole thing, and then
Right.
we'll be monitoring the implementation of the rest.
In order, the topmost one is immediate release of all arrested protesters. Have the president done that?
Yes.
I mean, have the government, have they done that?
Yes, the presidents have actually agreed to all the terms, the 10 and the 5 of the protesters, and they are now saying that all the people that have been arrested, they've given an order to release all of them, and we've gotten feedback that these people have been released. Even those who are charged with murder, of course, it was just a way of keeping them in, one of the corrupt practices of the police as well. So they've all been released, and we have evidence to that effect. Then also the compensation, for those who have been violated and those who have lost words and all. There must be an inquiry for that. People will send in details of what has happened. They will bring in the officers and all. That's a process. There are some of the requirements that will actually, that is not a switch, that will have to be an engagement, something that will take time for them to fully materialize. But at least if the process are in place, it can be ticked that it is already in place, and there will be people who will be monitoring it and be asking questions. You see, this is the fulfillment of my own personal prayer and the prayer of our organization, that Nigerian youth wake up to their responsibility. We cannot continue to sit back and expect politicians to do magic. People will never do what you expect, but what you inspect and what you monitor.
Shagun, if I may ask you, because I can feel the pulse and I can see the kind of energy in some of the young Nigerians that are being on the street. Do you, for sometimes, suppose in the last 2 days or so, that the demands or the yearnings of these young Nigerians have enlarged beyond the NSAS?
The yearnings are definitely beyond the NSAS. Of course, we're all under a coronavirus. We are all under the fact that the lockdown thing and the implication on the economy. We're also having a lot of other things that is buffeting us, or that have beleaguered the youth, under this economy, under this country, under this leadership. So it's not just about SARS. This SARS is just the tipping point of the whole thing. Despite the fact that government may have not been living up to expectations, these people have been lied to, they've been called names, there's no accountability and transparency in government, there's no enabling environment that they can actually use to develop themselves. This is our engagement. We're living in an engagement age. This youth can actually create jobs for themselves if there is an enabling environment. But security situation, they have been arrested unduly, they've been tagged names, some of them have been killed, some of them within 5 days of the week, 3 days will be sent as detention. So
Shagun, going forward, I mean, with all of this, a lot of the question on the minds of a lot of people is that when perhaps we want to see actions, we want to see solutions to some of this problem. But when do you think that this protest will end?
It is in the hands of the government. The moment the government makes a believer of them by fulfilling the demands that they have, the conservative 5x5 demands that they have, once they fulfill that, people will dissipate naturally. Because the truth should be known. The protest itself does not have a face, it does not have leadership, it is an organic thing. This is your Nigerian youth telling you, this time around, we're holding you to account and we're ready to put our lives on the line.
All right.
Across Nigeria. And it's going. And
yeah, so are you, Shagun, just to close, are you one of those, because I saw some of I've been following it actively, are you one of those who are saying that they want the president to give a special nationwide broadcast on this matter? Is that part of the demand too?
No. It was one of the things that they asked after when the IGP announced the dissolution of SARS. They said, well, you have dissolved, you have disbanded, you have done this all over the years, but we're saying now that aside from your order, we are asking that the president himself build on this by ensuring that he gives a presidential order to back it up, and the president did.
All right. Shagun Awosanya, popularly called Sega, the man who is referred to have popularized the hashtag EndSARS. Thank you so much, Segun Awosanya, for talking to us tonight. And of course, retired AIG Iwa, thank you so much for talking to us tonight. It's indeed a pleasure having your thoughts. Well, that's our show for tonight, everyone. Many thanks for watching. I'm Sean Kimale. Have a wonderful evening.